We met up, went out, and drank hard that night. Then again, most nights I went out, I drank hard. I remember when I left, my wife told me, "Hey, if you need to ride home, give me a call." Okay. So we drank all night, and we're heading home. I had my car parked at another friend of mine's house, and at that time I lived the next town down in Nelsonville. And I remember putting my hand on the door handle, and I remember my wife's telling me, "Hey, if you need to ride home, I'll come get you." And I remember thinking, I can make it. So fast forward a few minutes from there, and I stand on the side of 33 for what was OMBI number 4. By the time I got pulled over, it's now 2:30 in the morning, which means it's April 7th, 2007. It's Easter. I remember that date, not so much because that's when I started the road to sober up, but that was the date that I got in a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's what started my path. Like I said, I've had 4 OMBIs. I've been to jail 6 times. Been to inpatient rehab. I was in outpatient rehab. I've been to anger management twice. Verbally assaulted a counselor. At one of them, had a $50,000 cash bond put on me that day. I've lied, stealed, cheated, did whatever I wanted to do up to that point on April 7th. And that was the moment that I felt Jesus say, "That's it. This is it." The path of destruction that I left behind me, it never bothered me. But of all that stuff that I did, Jesus still said, "I love you and I forgive you." And it takes many years to really kind of let that sink in from everything that you've done. But what I can say is that every single one of us sitting in here has a God-shaped hole in our heart, and we've all tried to shove something in it to fill that hole. Mine was alcohol. At one time it was porn. At one time it's been business. There's always something there. But alcohol is what I use the most. For any of us that struggled with it, you can shove whatever you want in that hole. There's only one thing that fits in there. There's only one thing that will fit in there perfectly. That's Jesus Christ. I wasn't raised in a church-going home. My parents were believers. But my dad was raised Lutheran and my mom was raised a Nelson Christian. They couldn't agree to a church, so we just didn't go to one. So I didn't have that foundation growing up. So my foundation for such a long time was alcohol and anger. And it didn't work out well. But luckily, we serve an amazing, forgiving God that will continue to pursue even somebody was on, like me, that was on the path that I was on. So, fast forward a few more years, and I'd gotten connected to a church, and I had basically quit drinking. Life kind of starting to settle down a bit. It still struggles. And I felt the Lord tell me, "Hey, I want you to reach out to a couple of friends of yours and start a ministry, a men's ministry called Outlook Ministries." And so we did that, and we've been meeting together now for probably going on 10 years at this point. But during that time, myself and another member of the group, we went over to Washington Courthouse and we watched a band called Disciple and Decipher Dale, a free concert at the church over there. And we went to that concert. When we left, we were like, "Oh, we can do this in Logan." So a lot of you probably know Move the Hills. A lot of you that are local came to Move the Hills. We did that for 7 years. And so last year was the last one. We just kind of felt that the Lord was kind of moving us on. And so here we are. Literally, Move the Hills was right out there in that parking lot. And it was a great show. Chaotic Resemblance was there for the last show. So we're standing there and it's getting towards the end of the night, and this big guy comes walking by and he slaps me on the back. And just kind of messing around, but when I turned around to talk to him, he was hammered. And I was like, oh, this is great. Last Move the Hills event, and we're gonna have to end up getting into a fight with a big drug guy. This is gonna be good. So he kind of chit-chatted and walked off, went to the bathroom, came back, and was kind of mingling around. We had security there, and I heard security say, hey, we got a really big drug guy here. Okay. So anyways, he hung out for the rest of the night. The event was over, and one of the things I've always liked about the events that we've done, and even events like this, like the band they stay around and they talk to everybody and they share their stories, and that's what we were doing that night. And Ryan was talking with Kevin from a Disciple, and I was walking across the parking lot. We were cleaning up, and Kevin said, "You need to talk to him." He was telling Ryan that, he pointed to me. So I spent the next hour and a half talking to Ryan, and I told him the exact same thing I just said to you. I told Ryan, you have a God-shaped hole in your heart, and you've been trying to shove it full of alcohol, and it's not working, is it? Yeah. So that night, I won't go any further because he's going to share. That night led to this night. That night led to a relationship that we still have with him. He comes down here quite frequently. He's come to some of our meetings that we've had before. And he felt the Lord lead him to put on this. So,
we were going to play those songs.
So I was thinking the other day, I remember my first LDI. I remember my fourth one. I don't remember 2 and 3. I don't. I do regret 1, 2, and 3. I would never change 4. Because if it wasn't for 4, I wouldn't be here talking to you. If it wasn't for 4, I wouldn't know Jesus Christ. If it wasn't for 4, I'm not sure I'd still be married. If it wasn't for 4, I don't know if I'd have my daughter. So I'll never ever regret number 4. The other ones I will. But you can see it all through Scripture. God takes something horrible, He blesses it, and turns it into something amazing. That's what OMBI number 4 was. So for any of you that are struggling with alcohol, if you're local, please come to group. Thursday night, 6:30, we'll be starting, we're moving, we're going down to First Baptist. Every Thursday night at 6:30. Reach out to me, reach out to Pastor Brian, JTV, TV, any of the guys from out of the way, anyone, reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to talk to you. We've struggled. We've been there. We've had guys who have alcohol problems, we've had guys who've had drug problems, we've had guys who've had suicidal problems. You name it, we've got it there. So it's a safe place to come. If you're local, please come. If you're not local, find a network, find a men's group, find a support group. If you're not really in a relationship with Jesus Christ, take that time to do that. Jesus Christ is who saved me from alcohol, wasn't me. So, again, Ryan, thank you for allowing me to share. The bands, thanks for coming to our little town here in southeastern Ohio, playing for us, and hopefully we'll do many more of these. Thanks.
Thanks, Shawn. Man, that got wild. So these guys are going to do a transition real quick and get ready. And once you guys are ready, get ready. Yeah, kind of.
We got to do a line check real quick.
Okay, got to do a line check.
We weren't special enough to sound check, so we got to do a line check.
All right, they're going to do a line check real quick, and then I'll get up and introduce them.
No shot. I don't think I got any rookies up there.
I don't know.
I don't think I do.
You got a little friend there. That's your sidekick.